the Russian armed forces moving very slowly on its objectives. It is behind schedule considerably. And while we've seen some footage today in Kharkov of Russian forces potentially in the middle of the city, they don't hold the city. It's a city of 1.4 million people, and they are taking casualties, the Russians, and they're finding it very slow going. President Putin believed that these people would welcome him as a liberator. He was convinced in his own mind, in his own writings, that the Russians and the Ukrainians were the same peoples, and all they were waiting for is the great Tsars or the president of Russia to come and liberate them. And of course, when you make that assumption, you make all the decisions that we see playing out on our television screens, which is a sort of arrogant armed forces that has got bogged down, ill-prepared young junior soldiers because the officers just thought this was going to be much easier than it was. You see equipment in the wrong places, and I think that's why he is, carrying on as he does. But your very last bit about does he care? Well, he obviously doesn't really care. I mean, when I went to Russia myself, the Russian Ministry of Defense, they were very clear that Russian people could suffer greater than mine or greater than Europeans. We can't be harmed by sanctions. And I remember saying at one stage, I actually don't want Russian people to suffer any more than I want European and British people to suffer. That's my view. None of us should want that. But I think there's definitely a sense of pride that somehow Russian suffering equals Russian leadership, and I think he's about to be shocked, because this is the 21st century and Russian people, just like European people, don't want to go through what they're about to go through. What we have seen is that they weren't properly, their tactics weren't correct, they were doing things, thought they were rather confident they would take many of these cities in a few hours rather than 6 days or longer. And when any army on the move takes longer to do things, your logistical supply chain is stretched. If you're given enough rations for 2 days and it takes you 6, you've suddenly got a problem. And I think what we've seen is a lot of those issues are coming to bear. They've also been surprised by the Ukrainian strength of the resistance. And indeed, as a result, the Ukrainians have been also carrying out a very clever plan. We've seen footage, we can't verify, but we've seen footage of, Ukrainians using UAVs to attack petrol, train convoys to go after logistical lines. We've seen railway lines blown up, all the things that you and I, think about when it comes to resistance. So I think that is effectively coming home to roost. But it is also a switch in Russian tactics. I think the Russians have realised that the Ukrainians, by fighting, are costing them lots and lots of casualties, and the Russians have taken significant casualties, far more than they would have planned. And I think what they are therefore doing is trying to switch tactics. And what you're seeing now is those heavy bombardments at night. They'll try. They won't come into the cities as much. They will, I'm afraid, as we've seen tragically, by the looks of things, carpet bomb cities. Indiscriminately in some cases. They will fly their air at night rather than daytime, because what we've seen is they get shot down in the daytime, and they will try slowly but surely try and surround the cities and then either bypass them or bombard them. And I think that is the brutality that I'm afraid we are witnessing, and it's going to get worse. I warned before on your program that is the Russian doctrine is to get harder and tougher and more indiscriminate. And that's why, that tragic strike on, obviously, the cemetery in the centre of Kiev is exactly what we should expect more of. We have to, war crimes or anything else are done based on evidence. We've seen reports. We've certainly seen the deployment of some of those weapon systems. We haven't verified the use, but that's what we will collect evidence for it. And, some of these weapon systems are horrendous. About a week ago, we summoned the defence attaché from the Russian embassy to the ministry to remind him of his obligations under the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention is there to uphold a humanitarian treatment of both prisoners of war but also of civilian populations. They have to live up to those obligations, and we will make sure that we hold them to account whatever happens, whether it's now or in years to come.